Now that the main overarching conflict of Kaiju number 8 has finally reached its apex point, how about we go back and lay down the entire known history of the story from the very beginning all the way up to the absolute cinema we had in the last chapter. Make sure to like this video and also watch till the end because this video is going to put the entire Kaiju number 8 storyline into perspective. First, let's start with the origin of these monsters called Kaiju. In chapter 58, Hoshina stated that according to recent research, the most common theory is that Kaiju are born from the energy produced by the faults in the earth. These flaws act upon underground substances, plants, and animals, and ultimately produce what we call Kaiju. Now, starting with the known history regarding Kaiju-related disasters, it all starts way back when Japan was in the Meireki era, aka the Edo period. You see, during the year 1657, a great kaiju appeared and caused what is still considered to be the greatest massacre of kaiju slayers in history. This kaiju was dubbed the Daikaiju of the Meireki era. It killed an extraordinary number of kaiju slayers and also set fire to a huge part of Japan. It burned down the Kanto region and most of Edo, which is what Tokyo used to be called. To put this into perspective, he caused a disaster that burnt roughly 70% of the greater Tokyo region. This is actually based on a real historical event called the Meireki Fire that destroyed most of modern-day Tokyo. The samurai who fought Meireki Daikaiju were professional kaiju slayers who also used weapons and armor made out of kaiju, but as you can expect, they lacked the scientific knowledge or technology to create weapons as effective as the modern-day defense corps. In the end, they simply fought with what they had and did what they could, but the Daikaiju was just too powerful. A truly tragic number of people lost their lives during the 100 days that the Meireki Daikaiju wreaked havoc and destruction all across Edo. But then, as fate would have it, all their anger, pain, and regret, basically all their emotions, somehow came together and created a strange larva. It happened when their collective emotions gathered around one samurai who was still barely alive. This samurai also looked a lot like Kafka. As he was dying, the collective emotions began to transform his body, and that's what led to the birth of the larva. The larva then retreated deep into underground energy pathways called dragon veins and became a formless monster. Eventually, it started searching for a suitable host, someone it could merge with to fully awaken its power. That's how it eventually found Kafka centuries later. Now, to honor all the people who died in that battle, they built the Ryuni Shrine where the fight happened. After the Meireki Daikaiju incident, kaiju activity continued, but over time, people got better at fighting back. They developed better tools and techniques, and eventually, this led to the creation of organized kaiju defense units. These defense units eventually became what we now know as the Japan Anti-Kaiju Defense Force, a military organization fully dedicated to neutralizing every kaiju that threatens humanity. The Defense Corps also came up with a system to measure how dangerous a kaiju is by checking its fortitude levels. Since then, the Defense Corps have given an ID number to those kaiju who either have a fortitude level over 9 or they are a serious threat in some other way. And that takes us to Kaiju number 1, the first kaiju to ever get an official classification. Of course, that doesn't mean it's the first kaiju of this level, it's just the first one to get an official ID. The Defense Force managed to defeat it, and just like how kaiju slayers in the past used kaiju corpses to make weapons, the Defense Force did the same. We're talking about the numbered weapons, advanced weapons made from powerful kaiju. Though it's important to point out that you'll have to be compatible with the weapon to wield it. Gen Narumi, the current captain of the 1st Division, eventually turned out to be compatible with numbered weapon 1, and so it was customized for him. In 1972, Kaiju number 2 attacked and nearly destroyed Sapporo, the capital of Hokkaido. The Defense Force managed to defeat it, and its remains were used to create the base for Isao Shinomiya's combat suit and gauntlets. It's worth noting that numbered weapons aren't created instantly, they take time and effort to develop. In Isao Shinomiya's case, they must have kept the numbered weapon as is until Isao Shinomiya joined the Defense Force and it was customized for him. Over the next few decades, Kaiju number 3, 4, and 5 showed up one by one. Just like Kaiju number 2, they were all defeated by the Defense Force and turned into numbered weapons. For example, numbered weapon number 4 was specifically made for Isao's wife Hikari Shinomiya, and then later in the main story, it was inherited by their daughter, Kikoru Shinomiya. On the other hand, our boy Kafka and his childhood friend Mina Ashiro lost their homes and families to a kaiju attack. They made a promise to each to one day kill kaiju together as members of the Defense Force. Then, about 10 years later before the start of the main story, Kaiju number 6 entered the chat. It unleashed a snowstorm in the city of Odawara and caused so much devastation that it basically became the symbol of despair. No wonder the Defense Corps ended up calling it the King of Kaiju. Out of all the recorded fortitude levels throughout history until this point, Kaiju number 6 had the fortitude level of 9.6. That was the highest ever until that point in history. It was defeated, but unfortunately this kaiju managed to cause the deaths of 200 officers and 3 captains. One of these captains was Hikari Shinomiya. It was truly as if Godzilla himself had attacked Japan. We can assume this happened in the late 90s or early 2000s, and Kafka was about 22 years old at that time. About a year after Kaiju No. 6 was defeated, Mina joined the Defense Force. Meanwhile, Kafka failed the entrance exam for the 5th time. At some point in the last 9 to 10 years, Kaiju No. 7 showed up, and like the others, he was defeated and turned into a numbered weapon, which takes us to the current story. Kafka is 32 years old and working as a kaiju corpse cleaner. His job is basically cleaning up the remains of dead kaiju after the Defense Force kills them. Though of course, the sadness from not being able to join the Defense Corps like he promised with Mina is still there. A new recruit named Rino Ichikawa joins the same kaiju cleanup company as him, but unlike him, who has given up, Rino is a bright young man who would stop at nothing to get even with the kaijus. Next, Kafka and Rino find themselves all caught up in a kaiju attack. Kafka saves Rino and welcomes death, but fortunately, the two of them are saved by the 3rd Division and its captain, Mina. They both sustain injuries and end up in the hospital. While recovering, Rino thanks Kafka for saving him and encourages him to give the Defense Force entrance exam one more shot. Kafka decides to give it another try. That's also when the larva born from the collective rage and regrets of the samurai appears before Kafka and says, "I found you." It enters Kafka's mouth and transforms him into Kaiju No. 8, and the rest, as they say, is history. Nah, not history. This is just the beginning. But before we continue with the beginning, let me tell you that if you're a fan of Attack on Titan or One Piece, we've got some exclusive merch just for you. The link is in the description box below, and you can save 10% on your order with code AJAnime50, so don't forget to check it out after the video. With that said, let's get back to the video. Kafka manages to pass the Defense Force entrance exam without losing his kaiju powers. Rino passes as well. Both are assigned to the 3rd Division. The same goes for Kikaru, the daughter of Isao and Hikari. Next is the appearance of Kaiju No. 9 and its confrontation with Kafka, where it recognizes Kafka's form and calls it Kaiju No. 8. Kaiju No. 9 is different. It's smart, it can shapeshift, and take the appearance of various different humans. It can create clones out of itself, and more importantly, it's carrying the Daikaiju of the Meireki era within itself. As it turns out, while the larva found Kafka Hibino, Kaiju No. 9 was guided to a cave where it found the Meireki Daikaiju and fused with it. The next major event happens in Chapter 31. A supergiant Yoju bomb is about to be dropped, and left with no choice, Kafka transforms in front of the 3rd Division to save them. He releases a fortitude level of 9.8, the highest ever, and gets officially labeled as Kaiju No. 8. Naturally, he's taken into custody by the Defense Force and they want to run tests on him. In fact, some higher-ups want to kill him, which makes sense. However, Mina defends him and his loyalty to humans, and after a sparring session with Director General Isao, Kafka is allowed to remain in the Defense Force but under strict surveillance. He is also promoted from the 3rd Division to the 1st Division so that Japan's strongest anti-kaiju fighter and 1st Division captain, Gen, and Kaiju No. 8, the strongest kaiju, can be on the same team. Then, things take a dark turn when Isao, the Director General of the Defense Force, is absorbed by Kaiju No. 9. Kaiju No. 9 gets all of Isao's memories, and he also gains the power of Kaiju No. 2. After this, Kaiju No. 9 is treated as the new king of kaiju. From there, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. The kaiju that were created by him are also given IDs because the clones are just that strong. We're talking about kaiju numbers 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Kaiju No. 10 is just a chill kaiju who just wants to fight with the strongest opponents possible. It's sort of like Goku and how much it loves to fight. Hoshina defeats him, and what do you know? It personally desires to become Hoshina's numbered weapon so that it can keep fighting stronger opponents. Hoshina makes Kaiju No. 10 his numbered weapon. Kaiju No. 11 is killed by Gen. Kaiju No. 12 is created as an improved version of Kaiju No. 10, but Hoshina and Kaiju No. 10 together managed to surpass and then defeat it. Kaiju No. 13 had the 3rd highest fortitude level after Kaiju No. 6 and Kaiju No. 8, but it was one-shotted by Kafka. Kaiju No. 14 was seemingly killed by Mina, but then Kaiju No. 9 appeared and retook its power. As for Kaiju No. 15, it was a kaiju similar to Kikaru in a lot of ways, and it fought Kikaru, but Kikaru ultimately won. And then finally, as the last wave arc heats up and we are in a full-scale battle between Kaiju No. 9 and the Defense Force, Isao's spirit, which was still within Kaiju No. 9, gives Kafka the opportunity to land the final blow. Kafka uses his alternative 6th form, Neo God of Thunder, and completely destroys Kaiju No. 9's core. However, this simply allows Meireki Daikaiju's own core to replace the one that was destroyed. Kaiju No. 9's body transforms into a new kaiju with an unmeasurable fortitude level. That's right, for the first time ever, the Defense Force records an immeasurable fortitude level. It pierces through Kafka's chest and destroys his core. This basically kills Kafka. It also then easily destroys Mina's cannon. Then, when Hoshina and Gen step in to take it on, it becomes obvious right away that they're completely outmatched. Meanwhile, Kafka wakes up in the Meireki era as the soldier who looked like him. He experiences it as he and his fellow samurai lose everything fighting the Meireki Daikaiju in a grueling battle that lasts 100 days. That's right, Kafka experiences that battle as the soldier who became the foundation of the larva. The samurai then offer Kafka's own human heart to him so that he can return to being a human, but Kafka refuses the human heart. He chooses to fight once more. The samurai then give him a new core which allows Kafka to return to the battlefield. Kafka embraces his role as the living embodiment of man's struggle against the kaiju and evolves one last time. Kafka is reborn with a form stronger than anything we've seen until this point in the story. His fortitude level is also revealed to be immeasurable, just like Meireki Daikaiju. And now, in the last chapter, we have the ultimate climax of man's struggle against kaiju. It's quite literally the strongest kaiju in history versus the strongest kaiju of today. And the strongest kaiju of today is, of course, our boy, Kafka, a man who is now neither human nor kaiju, he's just a stray badass. And with that said, guys, this was the entire Kaiju No. 8 storyline. Unless there is another arc after this, we've already reached the pinnacle of man's struggle against kaiju. So what do you think? How will the story end? Come on, let's talk about it in the comments section below. Of course, also subscribe to our channel AJ Anime and hit the bell icon so that you're the first to know whenever I cook up something new and exciting. Well then, I'd say until next time, guys, and don't forget to check out our exclusive merch store.